So we talked about how you came up from Hamilton, you got into working with the government on various levels, some major projects. The big move is a significant project that we're still working with actually now as we talk about LRT and transit here in Hamilton. How did you go from private practice in Toronto, working in Africa and all over the place, to becoming the one of the top dogs in the entire City of Hamilton organization? You came home.
Yes, I came home. Well, and that's sort of the nub of the answer. Actually, I was approached by the city. This opportunity came up, and I was frankly fairly content and happy with the work that I was doing. It was exciting work in private practice, and you know, my firm was doing well, working with a great group of people, and I kind of thought that's where my career would end. That I would stay in that role. But yeah, then Hamilton called, and I thought, well, what an opportunity to take, you know, what I've learned and experienced in Ontario and around the world, and bring it back to the community where I grew up, and the community where, you know, where that I'm most passionate about. It's a rare opportunity to be able to do that, and you know, some of what you miss when you're doing consulting work is I got to work on some very exciting projects in some interesting places. But when they're not your home, it's a little bit different. When you're planning in your home, it's just that much more special, and you can kind of get that much more excited about it.
There's kind of a vested interest immediately there.
Yeah, and it's you know, these are the neighborhoods where I spent my youth, and being now, and some of them have already changed so much, and being able to part of, you know, how they continue to evolve and change in the future is pretty fun. Yeah.
Now, so Tim McCabe retired a number of months ago. You've been on the job now for 2 weeks.
2 weeks, yes.
And how are you finding it?
It has been pretty overwhelming. It is, as you said at the beginning, it's a big department. It's involved in a lot of different areas. I'm very fortunate that it's a very strong and experienced team that I'm working with. That they know their stuff, and they do very good work. And I am gradually getting up to speed on all the issues. I'm far from being there yet. But it has been fun. It's been you know, each day I'm learning something new, and getting a bit more excited about the kinds of possibilities that are in front of me.
When you, I know when you first came to Hamilton, it was before you started the job, and we grabbed a drink and we were talking a little bit, and I talked about how you had mentioned to you that you just joined Twitter, I noticed, and I was one of your followers, and I think I was one of the first, like, I don't know, 20 or something.
You might have been, yeah.
And you have hundreds of followers now on Twitter.
Well, a couple of hundred. I'm not sure you could quite say hundreds, but to me that was a conscious decision, was to start communicating through that channel once I took on the job, because you know, communication is a really important part of this kind of role. Is sort of communicating out what the department's working on, and it's a good way for sort of to hear some of the feedback coming in as well.
And Hamilton is known for being a very vocal community, especially via social media. So have you found that to be positive? Are people communicating well with you through Twitter?
It has been. So far, it certainly has been. You know, people sending me, I get sent articles, I get sent ideas, which is great, stuff that I hadn't thought of before. And I also get to follow kind of what's going on in other constituencies, and it is definitely a very social media connected community, and I can't imagine how you would be able to do this job in this day and age without having that kind of channel open to you.
I don't think most Hamiltonians can imagine being not involved with their city via social media either, so that works out well. But when you come into a position like this and you've got the social media, and that's a few hundred people, I think you're over 300 now on there when I last checked.
Something like that, yes.
Yeah. I think I'm more interested in how many people are following you than you are. But you know, you've got a few hundred people there. I saw you the other day walking up and down the street on James Street North, and so you're out and about. I know you're doing some Jane's walks. But how do you get connected to a city that is as huge and diverse, and also kind of regionalist, like Hamilton, where we're a number of former independent municipalities that have been amalgamated into this new city of Hamilton, which is now 14 years old. But there are still some strong regional identities there with some very, very different ideas about what the city should be, and also what they would like to be, you know, as opposed to the other communities. How do you even begin to get to know them?
You just dive in, and I guess what I've sort of said is I'm open to meeting with just about anybody who wants to meet with me, and it's important for me to really get to understand the diversity of the city. I mean, there's neighborhoods that I know well and neighborhoods that I don't know quite as well, I mean, to me, it's going to be a process. This isn't sort of a, get out in the community and kind of see what's going on for the first 3 months and then go back to my office and think I know everything.
Stamped documents.
Yes, it's just, to me, that's just kind of a way of approaching the work and approaching the job is to be always out in the community. And so, I've got to do a number of fun things already. You mentioned some of the Jane's walks and the Doors Open activities, and just yesterday I got invited to meet with the residents group out in Stony Creek that I'm going to be going out with,
good.
and meeting with the Chamber of Commerce out in Flamborough. So, it's going to take a while to get out and meet everyone I want to meet and see everyone I want to see. But I think across the department, I think there is an openness, and it's not just me who's out in the community as well. I mean, we have a really great group of planners and designers and folks in economic development who are very connected in their community, and they are. I'm not sure if people realize just how hard those folks work, both in terms of when they're on the job and when they're off the job. They're still out in the community, and they're still kind of learning what's going on. They're citizens of the community.
Yeah.
So, and I, of course, encourage that with all of the staff.
It's going to be interesting, though, I know, as you do your research, and that will be an ongoing thing, as you said, too. I think that's something, you'll be sitting under many trees speaking with many elders here for a very long time, I think, which is very good. But how do you then balance the needs of totally different communities and ultimately say, look, we are in this together? How do you communicate that, or perhaps just maintain some fairness in that job?
Yeah, it's tough because there's vastly different opinions as to what sort of path the city should be on in the future, and I guess in terms of what I see my role as, it's I tend not to be ideological about my approach to very many issues. I'm pretty open-minded, and I like to see what the evidence is, see what some of the professionals in my department can kind of come up with, listen to what the community has to say, and then it's really about just sort of putting your best advice to council in terms of what you think professionally and what I've been hearing, and then that's why the citizens elect their leadership at council, is to sort of sort through those issues and different opinions and listen to what advice my department has to offer and to make some sometimes very tough decisions. And
you've got a few tough decisions coming up, I know, that are going to be coming through your hands. So the LRT, rapid transit, BRT file, that's something that's getting a lot of traction right now, obviously, as we're in the middle of a provincial election, or actually as when the show airs, we'll have just finished the provincial election, so who knows what'll be happening when you watch this. But that's a hot tamale right there. And there are a lot of big issues, the possibility of a casino in Hamilton. Going forward, what do you see for Hamilton? Do you? I mean, we've got that great economic development video, The Ambitious City, and that word's been bounced around a lot. Are you seeing Hamilton as an ambitious city? Are you seeing a positive momentum? Are you seeing where do you see yourself going forward with this job now?
Absolutely, there's a lot of positive momentum. I could see it before I sort of came back and started to get more closely involved. I mean, there's most certainly a buzz out there about what's happening in Hamilton.
Did you hear that in Toronto as well?
Oh yeah. This is people are noticing that there's a lot starting to happen in Hamilton, and with that comes some very difficult issues. A couple of which you've mentioned, and there are a lot more. I think one of the great things about Hamilton is the diversity of the city. Is that it's I can't think of another city where you've got a heavily urbanized downtown core, significant heritage assets. You also have suburban areas. You have a vast rural area, active agricultural areas, huge industrial. I mean, you basically have every planning issue there is exists in Hamilton. And that's one of the reasons why it's really a pretty exciting place to work.
You've landed yourself a real challenge, that's for sure.
Yes.
It's interesting, though. I often talk, and we had Terry Cook on here as well, and we've talked from the Community Foundation. We've talked about the fact that Hamilton is really, and I would argue, Canada's only Rust Belt city in the true sense of the massive industrial heritage and kind of this transitioning economy to meds, eds, creative, and who knows what else. The issues that you face in that sort of a climate, they've got to be unique because Hamilton is unique in the Canadian context.
It is. Certainly Ontario, I think you're right, in Ontario, it is sort of the Rust Belt city. I mean, in the Southwest there are some communities that face similar issues but not quite the same. But that brings with it its own set of challenges. But to me, I also see some really significant opportunities because there aren't a lot of cities who have a port. I mean, and when you're doing economic development activity, to have a port like that is a pretty significant asset. Having an airport is a pretty significant asset. and having the older urban fabric, which is, I love Rust Belt cities, and you know, before I started the job, I went on vacation and I went to Cleveland because I just love to visit Rust Belt cities. I'm going to Pittsburgh in a couple of weeks.
I know a bus tour coming up in the fall that we might get you on.
Excellent,
too, so.
excellent. But they're, you know, they have such great bones to build on, and I think, you know, no disrespect to some of the other municipalities in the region, but you know, some of the other, you know, some of the 905 municipalities that have really grown and developed a lot in recent years. You know, when they don't have that, you know, this is why I think built heritage is so important, and some of the heritage buildings we have are so important, is because to me that's what gives Hamilton an opportunity to grow a lot differently than what some of the other communities I have, because you are building on such a strong historic fabric.
I love it. This is very exciting. It's exciting to have you in here. Thanks for coming on the show, and welcome back to Hamilton. I'm personally very excited. I know a lot of our viewers are very excited to see where you go with this. You're one of the top people in the entire bureaucracy of the city of Hamilton. We've got 6,300 employees, and you're right at the top of that heap in a very, very powerful, interesting position. So, and you're in a fascinating time when the city is, like you said, transitioning, and there's so much going for it, and I wish you all the best in that. I think you're in for a real challenge, but I think you're also in for some real rewards as well, because it's an exciting thing to be working with.
Thanks very much.
So congratulations.
Thank you.
We're going to be back next year with a brand new season, a whole reformatted show, in fact. We might not even call it Our City. Until then, I'm your host, Martina Scalenzi. Have a wonderful summer.